Hello and welcome to Garthrough Farm. My name is Michael Hickey. I inherited this farm, which comprises 100 acres, from my uncle in 1981. It has been in my father's family for the last 200 years. This is a mixed farm. Originally we had cattle and horses here. Now we concentrate mainly on Aberdeen Angus cattle. Traditionally over the years, for the last 38 years, we have sold organic beef. The management here is mainly extensive. So obviously because we're organic, we don't use any pesticides, we don't use any fertilizers, etc. When I came here, I only had 3 different little rules that I gave myself. One was to have no debt. The next one was to run it organically. And thirdly, I was to err on the side of nature. So here we have an example of a typical full-grown hedgerow surrounding a field. For me, this is just an absolute haven for bird life. I mean, when you talk about corridors, everything lives here, all the different types of birds. We have an example here behind me of hazelnut, and we have never had a crop of hazelnuts like we have this year. And beside the hazelnut, we have sloes, and then we have crabapple, and on down then there's elder, and a full-grown oak tree. And this is typical of a run of hedge. We would have, the hedgerows here would probably comprise 6 kilometers of hedges. And it probably is one of my main jobs here during the year, to keep it somewhat cleared so that the electric fence works. After a period of time, you come to know your fields individually. And this particular field was always very poor. So I came to understand that it's a very sandy soil composition, dries out very quickly, and had fairly poor organic matter. So over the years, we've treated this field reasonably gently. So instead of putting our manure heap in a corner of a field, we've actually moved it around the field and used it as a reservoir in situ. And in beginning of September or the middle of September, when the soil is still warm, we'll spread it. But the other measure that we've used here to improve our fields is that we top the field before it actually needs it. Because I'm of the opinion that the toppings cause a kind of a heat, a fermentation on the surface of the soil, which allows the bacteria to multiply and to actually bring up phosphates from the deeper levels of the soil. Here we have some of the wet grassland that I was talking about. And every year we let one of these fields grow to its full potential, so that not only can we see what's here, but we can provide a whole host of food for a whole host of different creatures. There are a lot of different types of food flowers here. We have knapweed, we have vetches, we have red clover, we have St. John's wort. We have lots of different types of grasses, quaking grasses, various types of orchids, meadow sweet, the list goes on. It's quite an astonishing array, and on a fine day here you'll have clouds of red admirals that'll drop down here, and meadow browns and common blues, etc., all the different types of butterflies, and it's really, really a beautiful sight. So here we have some of the cows on the farm. We use an Aberdeen Angus, and we have done now for the last 35 years. So we keep a closed herd, and these are a typical example of the type of animal that we produce. They would be 100% grass-fed, and they would have a perfect omega-3/6 relationship. We think they're more than just a beef, they're a health food. So here we have an area of wet grassland, and this would probably be about 13 acres. And we have resisted over the years draining this land. And in fact, what we did was we would graze a lot of the horses that we had here during the winter. And after a couple of springs, we noticed that the horses, because they'd grazed out the grasses, that the actual diversity of plants was increasing. So when I was doing an ecology thing down at UCC as a thesis, I did a field comparison here. So we did soil digs here and soil profiles of this particular field and 2 surrounding fields. And we found that the soil profile was exactly the same, but the number of different species of plant that we found here numbered 126, whereas on the adjoining fields it numbered 9. Now, in the case of the 9, you had a much greater foliage, a much greater density of foliage. So the fertilizers and the drainage, etc., worked, but the biodiversity suffered. I think that the awareness about nature and biodiversity and so forth has grown, and I think this is a wonderful thing, because for me, as I grow older, I become more interested in nature, and everything about the things that I see around me enhances my world. And I think that that to me is the reason that I farm in the manner that I do.